A mother knows when silence means danger, and his house was too quiet to be empty. I still remember the day the call stopped. 2 weeks, that's how long it had been since I last heard my son's voice. At first, I told myself he was just busy. He always was. Work, errands, his own life, things that kept him from calling his old mother back. But as the days turned into nights and the nights stretched into 2 long, aching weeks, his silence began to sound less like distance and more like a warning. I called, texted, left messages that felt emptier each time. Nothing. His phone went straight to voicemail, that cold, hollow recording saying he was unavailable. And mothers know when something isn't right. We can feel it, like a shift in the air, a pull beneath the ribs. My son wasn't gone. He was missing. That morning, I caught the 7:15 bus into town. My hands would not stop trembling, and the corner of his old photograph, the one of him in his graduation gown, kept poking out of my purse like it wanted to breathe again. He had moved just a month earlier, a small house near the woods. Quiet, peaceful, cheap, he had said. Too cheap, I had thought at the time. When I stepped off the bus, the neighborhood looked still, too still. The kind of stillness that presses on your chest. The trees didn't sway, the air didn't move. Even the birds seemed to have taken a vow of silence. The path to his house wound through overgrown grass. The mailbox was bursting, letters crumpled and damp, spilling out like a cry for help. A mug sat on the porch railing, half full, ringed with mold, a fly floating lazily in the middle. My stomach nodded. I knocked. Once. Twice. Then harder. Daniel? It's Mom. No answer. The handle turned easily, too easily. Inside, the air hit me like a wall. Heavy. Stale. The smell of rotting food, old coffee, and something metallic underneath. The curtains were drawn tight, blocking out the sun. Dust danced in the thin lines of light that cut across the room. The TV was on, not playing, just paused, a man's frozen face staring at nothing. The soft hum of static filled the silence like a whisper. Daniel? Still nothing. Every instinct told me to leave. To call someone. But that old mother's sense, the one that used to wake me before his fever spiked, that told me when he was lying, whispered back, he is here. The kitchen was worse. Plates piled high in the sink, food gone gray, and a trash bin breathing flies. But something else caught my eye, the kitchen table. One chair was pulled out, just enough for someone to have been sitting there. A half-empty glass beside a notebook. The notebook was open. His handwriting. Slanted, shaky. Just one sentence sprawled across the page, don't open the door if it knocks twice. My mouth went dry. I looked at the front door. Still closed. No sign of a break-in. Nothing unusual, except that message, echoing in my head like a pulse. What door? I crept down the hall. Every step seemed to creak louder than the last. His bedroom door was ajar. The sheets were twisted, clothes thrown everywhere, drawers half open. It smelled faintly of his cologne, and something damp beneath it. I whispered his name again. Daniel? That's when I heard it. A sound. Soft. Slow. Something moving. It came from the back of the house, a dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. Not a rat. Not a person walking. Something in between. I followed it. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought it might break free. The sound led me to the guest room, the one he always called the junk room. The door was half open. The light flickered. I pushed it with one finger. The hinge groaned, long and low, like a sigh from something that didn't want to be disturbed. Inside, boxes, an old chair, a bed shoved against the far wall. Empty. Almost. Because that's when I saw the blanket move. At first, it was subtle, just a ripple, like a breath. Then again, I froze. The air in my throat turned to ice. It wasn't a draft. The window was closed. Then I heard it, a faint, steady sound. Breathing. Someone was under the bed. I took one step forward, knees trembling. Daniel? Silence. Another step. The breathing hitched. I reached for the blanket. My fingers brushed the edge when a whisper came from underneath. Mom, don't. My heart nearly stopped. Daniel? I gasped, dropping to my knees. He shifted, eyes peeking from beneath the bed frame, hollow, bloodshot, terrified. He looked wrong. Skin pale, lips cracked, stubble grown wild. Like he had not eaten, had not slept, had not lived for days. Sweetheart, what are you doing down there? Mom. His voice cracked. You should not have come. I have been calling. Everyone's been looking for you. I reached for him, but he flinched away. They are watching, he said. They think I don't know, but I can hear them at night. Who is watching? His eyes darted to the floor. The ones under the boards. The air went still. The what? He nodded frantically. They knock twice before they come up. That's why I stay above them. They don't like the light. I looked down. Bare wood floors. Dust. Nothing unusual, except the faint smell of iron and mold. Honey, I whispered, you need rest. You are sick. Maybe dehydrated, am not sick. He snapped, eyes wide. You don't believe me either. Daniel, he opened his mouth again, but the sound that followed didn't come from him. It came from beneath the floor. Knock. I froze. Then again. Knock. Knock. Daniel's entire body went rigid. He grabbed my wrist so hard it hurt. See? He hissed. They heard you. My breath caught in my throat. The boards beneath the bed trembled, just slightly, dust falling in tiny streams. My first thought was rats. Maybe pipe shifting. Old foundations. Something explainable. But those knocks, they were measured. Purposeful. Daniel, I whispered, we have to go. He shook his head, voice breaking. If I leave, they will follow. We will call someone. The police, he squeezed tighter. No. They don't help. He looked up at me, eyes wet and wild. They feed it. Then came the scrape. A long, dragging noise under the floor, nails or claws or something desperate. Then stillness. We didn't move. Didn't breathe. The air shifted. My phone buzzed in my hand, but before I could dial, a new voice whispered from beneath the bed. Not Daniel's. Not mine. We told you not to open the door. The bulb overhead flickered once. Twice. The air grew cold. Thick. Daniel shoved me backward, eyes wide. Go. Daniel, no, go. Something hit the bottom of the bed, hard. Thud. The whole frame jumped. Dust fell from the ceiling like rain. He crawled back under, whispering fast, desperate words I couldn't understand, a prayer, maybe. I ran. Down the hallway, the knocks followed, slower this time, deliberate, mocking. 2 knocks. Always 2. I reached the front door and threw it open, gasping in the sunlight. The world outside was calm again, birds singing, the wind finally moving. But behind me, that house stood still, holding its breath. And as I turned to leave, I saw it. The curtain in the guest room window twitched. Not from the breeze. From the inside. The house was silent again. But this time, I knew it wasn't empty. It wasn't the floorboards. It whispered. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Even after I had locked myself inside my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, I could still hear it, that whisper crawling through my head like smoke. That voice from under the bed. It wasn't Daniel. I know my boy's voice. A mother always knows. But this one, it sounded almost like him, stretched thin and wrong, like something trying to remember how to sound human. All night I sat there, headlights off, the woods pressing in around the house. Every branch that brushed the roof made my heart skip. Every gust of wind sounded like a breath I couldn't place. By the time dawn cracked through the trees, I told myself I was done being afraid. I had raised a son through storms and sickness, through nights of thunder and hunger. I wasn't going to let some house whisper me into fear. When the sun rose, I went back inside. The air was colder that morning. Still. Empty. Watching. No hum from the fridge. No ticking clock. Not even the soft buzz from the lights. Every step I took felt like trespassing. Daniel? I whispered, voice small in the silence. Nothing. The bed where I had found him the night before was empty, the blanket tossed aside, pillow on the floor, indentation still in the mattress like he had just been there. But something else had changed. The smell. It wasn't mildew anymore. It was sharper, metallic, sour, like copper left out in the rain. Like blood. It came from under the bed. I crouched down, my knees groaning in protest. The air beneath was dark, heavy, thick. My reflection shimmered faintly in something shiny, a small piece of metal catching light through the crack in the curtains. Then the air moved. A slow shift, like a breath being drawn. And I heard it. Mom. Every nerve in my body froze. That voice again. But softer now. Closer. I wanted to run. God knows I should have. But that single word, Mom, rooted me to the floor. Because this time it sounded just like him. Daniel? I whispered, lowering myself further. Honey, it's me. Are you hurt? Silence. Then another whisper, right against the floorboards. Don't tell anyone I'm here. My pulse skipped. What? The voice came again, slower, more deliberate, like someone pressing their mouth to the wood between us. Don't tell. Promise. I stared at the floor, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear myself think. Daniel, I said, trying to steady my breath. You were scaring me. What's happening? No answer. Only a slow creak, wood stretching beneath weight. Then, nothing. I don't know how long I stayed like that, just crouched there, trembling, staring into the dark under that bed. Then, finally, I reached out. My fingers brushed dust, something soft, and then something paper. I pulled it out. A folded note, edges crumpled and damp. Daniel's handwriting. Shaky. Uneven. The kind of writing you do when your hand won't stop shaking. It read, don't tell anyone I'm here. If they ask, say I left. Don't open the basement door. My breath caught. The basement. I had not even known there was one. I lifted the paper to my face. It smelled faintly of metal and damp, and something else. Salt. The ink was smudged, not from rain, but from tears. Daniel had been crying. The rest of the house felt like a tomb. I checked the bathroom, empty. The closet, nothing but old clothes. The kitchen, silent except for a faint dripping from the faucet. And yet, the house wasn't quiet. When I stood still, I could hear it, faint, distant, beneath the floorboards. Not one voice. Many. A low, overlapping murmur, like whispers bleeding through the wood. I knelt, pressing my ear to the boards. At first, silence. Then, rhythm. A hum. Almost like chanting. My eyes darted toward the crack beside the bedpost. Dust shifted slightly, as though something beneath had moved. I touched the edge of the crack. My fingers came back wet. Red. Blood. The whispering stopped. And in that silence, the house felt alive. I stood up, backing away, heartbeat in my throat. My head knocked a box off the chair. The crash made me jump. Then, thud. Something hit the underside of the bed. Hard. I gasped. Then again, thud. Then again, faster this time. Each strike louder, angrier, shaking the whole frame. Dust rained from the ceiling. Stop. I cried out, half to it, half to myself. Please, stop. Silence. Then, from the dark beneath the bed, you should not have come back. That wasn't Daniel's voice. I ran. Out of the room, down the hallway, past the kitchen and out the front door. The air outside hit me like a slap, sharp, freezing, alive. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. Because somewhere between fear and madness, my heart whispered. Something cruel. What if he is still in there? So I turned back. Through the open doorway, the house looked quiet again. Still. Normal. Except for the bed skirt. It moved. Just a little, rising and falling. Like someone breathing underneath. Daniel? I whispered again, voice barely audible. Nothing. The shadows seemed to thicken, swallowing the corners of the room. Even the sunlight stopped halfway across the floor, like it was afraid to go any further. Then, a soft sound. A breath. Followed by words, whispered so faintly they brushed the edges of my mind. He is not here. I froze. Who are you? No answer. Where's my son? I said louder, trembling. The floor creaked. And then, two eyes opened from under the bed. They were too wide. Too human. Blinking up at me, unmoving. I stumbled backward, clutching the wall to keep from collapsing. The eyes didn't follow. They just watched. Then, a pale hand reached out, trembling, gripping the edge of the bed. A figure crawled forward. A girl. Young. Dirty. Her skin gray with dust and bruises. Her hair clung to her face like seaweed. She looked terrified. Please, she whispered. Don't call anyone. I could barely speak. Who are you? What are you doing in my son's house? Her lips quivered. She pressed a finger to them, SHHH. He was trying to help me. My chest tightened. Who? Your son. For a moment, everything went still. No breath. No thought. Just that one truth hanging heavy between us. She crawled up further, shaking, her knees scraping the wood. He told me not to open the basement door, she said. They come from down there. They? I whispered. Her eyes darted to the floor, full of dread. You'll hear them too. When it's quiet. Before I could ask another question, a noise from outside. A car door. Then footsteps. Her face went pale. They are back, she breathed. Who? But she didn't answer. She just shook her head, eyes wide, and crawled back beneath the bed. Then, knock. Knock. Two slow, deliberate knocks echoed through the house. I froze at the doorway, the sound crawling up my spine. One knock. Two. Silence. The same pattern Daniel warned me about. And this time, it wasn't coming from the front door. It was coming from below. This time, I didn't just hear the knocking, I knew who it was for. It wasn't my son under that bed, but it was someone who knew him. The knocking didn't stop. Two, then three slow raps, each one heavier, sharper, not a polite request to enter, but a warning. I froze in the hallway, hand pressed to my chest. The girl beneath the bed, barely 20, pale and trembling, pressed her palm flat to the floorboards and mouthed, "Don't move." Outside, gravel crunched. Footsteps circled the porch. Then the soft scrape of a key in the lock. That's when my stomach turned to stone. Daniel's keys. He would have had them when he vanished. Someone else did now. Who's out there? I called, forcing steadiness into my shaking voice. Silence. Then, a man's tone, smooth as oil, maintenance. Just came to check the meter. My breath caught. No maintenance man came this far down the road, and not at night. The girl's eyes went wide. She shook her head, mouthing again, "Don't open it." The knob twisted once, twice, then stopped. The house seemed to hold its breath with me. And just when I thought it would burst open, the sound vanished. Only the night humming outside. Gone. Or pretending to be. The girl crawled out, every movement a flinch. Her hair clung to her face, streaked with dirt, bruises ran like ink across her arms. She looked at me like a stray who expected to be hit. "Who are you?" I whispered. "What's your name?" Her voice cracked. "Lena." "Lena," I repeated softly. "How do you know my son?" She swallowed hard. "He was helping me. Said I could stay here, just for a few days. Until it was safe." "Safe from who?" Her gaze flicked to the door. "You heard him." We moved to the window. The lake shimmered in the distance, dull gray under morning light, beautiful, but watchful. "He comes. Back every night," she whispered. "Looking for me. Your son said they worked together once, before he found out." "Found out what, child?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled a folded photo from her pocket. It was Daniel, arm around her, smiling that same proud, shy grin he had when he fixed a broken bike or rescued a stray dog. On the back, in his handwriting, "She's in danger. Don't trust anyone until I call." The words blurred as I read them. My throat closed. That note I had found under the bed, "Don't tell anyone I'm here," it wasn't meant for me. It was for her. I sat heavily on the edge of the bed. "You said he was helping you," I whispered. "When did you last see him?" Her eyes filled. 2 weeks ago. He said he was going to meet someone, to make it right. He promised he had come back. 2 weeks. That's when he disappeared. What did he mean, make it right? She hesitated, voice barely a breath. He said he had proof. About what they were doing at that place. What place? The clinic. The word hit me like ice water. Daniel had mentioned the clinic once, a quiet facility upstate where he volunteered. He said something about wrong files, missing patients. I told him he was overworked. But Lena's eyes, they told me I had been wrong. They hurt people, she whispered. Called it therapy. Daniel found out they were keeping patients sedated, locked in. I was one of them. The room seemed to shrink. He got me out, she said. We ran. But someone followed us. He told me to hide here, that he would get help. Her hand shook in mine, called us stones. Then we will find him, I said. I promise you, we will find him. She only shook her head. If he is gone this long, it's because of them. He said if they caught him, they would come for me next. A soft drag echoed from the hallway, something heavy scraping wood. We both froze. Stay here, I whispered. Her hand clutched my sleeve. Please don't go, but I moved anyway. The sound led toward the basement. Those words burned through my mind. Don't open the basement door. The smell met me halfway, metallic, sour, like old blood and rainwater. I turned back. Why did Daniel say that, Lena? What's down there? She stared at the floor. He said there's something inside he couldn't face. I went to the kitchen for my charger, phone on 1%, and stopped cold. The front door was unlocked. I had not touched it since last night. A chill slid across my spine. Lena, I hissed, did you open this? She shook her head, trembling. No. Then came it, a scent on the breeze. Cigarette smoke. And a voice, muffled but distinct, Lena, come out. I won't hurt you. Her face went white. Who is that? His name's Carter, she whispered. He worked at the clinic. He is the one we ran from. We backed into the hallway, holding our breath. The porch creaked under his boots. You can't hide forever, he called. He tried. Look where that got him. My stomach lurched. What does he mean? I whispered. Lena covered her mouth, eyes wide. He knows? Daniel recorded everything before he disappeared. I could hear my pulse in my ears. He has my son, I breathed. Maybe, she said, shaking. Or maybe he made sure you will never find him. The doorknob turned, slow, deliberate. I grabbed the cast iron skillet from the counter, the same one I would have used to cook Daniel's favorite breakfast when he was 5. My fear turned to fire. I wasn't helpless. I was his mother. Go, I whispered. Hide. She crouched behind the couch. Click. The lock gave. The door creaked open an inch, spilling a slice of gray light onto the floor. A shadow stretched long and tall across the wood. Daniel? The man said softly, mocking. You home? Every nerve in me went still. He stepped inside. The smell of sweat and smoke hit first, then the glint of metal tucked at his waist. He prowled through the house like he had done it before. I waited until he was halfway down the hall. Then, steady as I could, I said one word, police. He froze. Before he could react, Lena bolted from behind the couch toward the back door. He lunged. I swung. The skillet cracked against his skull with a sound I will never forget, a dull, final thud that echoed through the walls. He dropped. Lena and I ran. Out the door, down the steps, my shaking fingers barely finding the phone screen. 911, I gasped. There's a man in my house. Please hurry. Sirens rose somewhere in the distance, faint but real. Lena sobbed beside me. He's not dead, right? No, I said, though I wasn't sure. But he's not getting back up either. We turned back toward the porch. Through the window, the man's hand twitched once. But what caught my eye wasn't him, it was what had fallen from his pocket. A small wooden keychain. The one I carved for Daniel when he was 10, shaped like a little cross. I had watched him hang it from his keys every year since. I picked it up, my hands trembling, the wood warm from his touch. Lena whispered, he had Daniel's keys? I nodded slowly. And Daniel never went anywhere without them. The sirens grew louder, closer, but the sound barely reached me. Because all I could hear was my son's voice in memory, laughing, alive, promising he would call. Now all I had was this. A keychain. A stranger's blood on my porch. And a question that hollowed the world around me. If he had these, then where is my son? The sirens held across the lake. But inside that house, behind the basement door Daniel swore never to open, something else began to move. Every locked door has a heartbeat, and this one was breathing. I have never been afraid of a locked door before. But that night, standing at the top of my son's basement stairs, I could feel something pulsing behind it. Not sound, not movement, but presence. Emily sat on the bottom step, knees hugged to her chest, whispering over and over, he told me not to open it. Her eyes looked hollow, starved of sleep. Her lips were cracked, trembling. I tried offering her water, a blanket, even comfort, but her gaze never left that door. It wasn't like any other door in the house. The wood was swollen with damp, edges dark like bruises. A rusted padlock dangled from a latch that looked new, too new. My son was never one for secrets. He used to say, if you've got nothing to hide, leave the door open. So why now? I went back upstairs, but the air felt heavier, too still. The ticking clock grew louder in the silence, as though it was counting something down. I wiped the already spotless counters. I rearranged the cups. But no amount of cleaning could scrub away that feeling that something downstairs was waiting. When I looked out the kitchen window, the night looked like a black lake. Fog crawled up from the woods, wrapping itself around the porch rails like fingers. I couldn't sleep. Not with that door locked. Not with Emily whispering in the dark. So, I went down. The basement stairs groaned beneath my feet. 1, 2, 3, each step colder than the last. By the time I reached the landing, the air had changed. It smelled faintly metallic, sharp and wet. Like old pennies. Like rain before a storm. The padlock caught the beam of my flashlight, glinting like an eye. From above, Emily's voice trembled down the stairwell. "Don't, please." He said if anyone opened it, "I've lost too much in my life," I said softly. "I won't lose my son to a door." The key wasn't hard to find, because mothers always know where their sons hide things. It was taped beneath the coffee tin in the kitchen drawer, the one filled with receipts, batteries, and old pens. When I pressed the brass key into the lock, my hand shook so violently it almost slipped from my fingers. Then, click. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. The door resisted at first, groaning as if something alive were pushing back. A gust of cold, wet air spilled out, smelling of rust and rot. The flashlight flickered twice before holding steady. Inside was a cave of shadows. Tools hung on the walls like silent witnesses. Boxes sagged on warped shelves. Water dripped from the ceiling, steady and rhythmic. And there, in the center of it all, was a small table. On it lay a phone, still glowing, still recording. The red light blinked like a heartbeat. The phone was angled towards something on the floor, a dark heap beside the table. I stepped closer. Not a heap. A shirt. My son's blue flannel shirt, the one he wore the last day I saw him. It was stiff. Heavy. The fabric clung together in patches of dried brown. Blood. My breath caught. The world went thin and far away. The air itself felt like it was closing in on me. Behind me, Emily whimpered. "I told you not to open it," she sobbed. I turned to her, the flashlight trembling in my hand. "You tell me right now," I said. "Where is my son?" Her lips quivered. He told me not to tell. He said if I did, he'd find us both." "Who?" I demanded. "Who would find you?" Her eyes darted toward the phone. He was recording it, that night. The battery on the phone was nearly dead, but the screen still glowed. The last video file was open, frozen mid-frame. My son's face, half-turned. A blur of motion behind him. I hesitated, thumb hovering over play. Then I pressed it. Static. Then, footsteps. Heavy. Uneven. My son's voice came through, breathless. "Emily, you have to stay here. If he finds out I helped you," the audio cracked. Then another voice, low, cold. "You think you can hide her? You think she won't tell them?" A scuffle. Something fell. Maybe the phone. The camera spun sideways, landing on the floor, the lens catching flashes, boots, shadows, my son's hand, blood glinting on his wrist. Then, silence. A door creaked. Footsteps retreating. And the faint sound of the basement door closing. Video ended. I stared at the dim screen until my reflection stared back, pale, terrified, shaking. Emily was sobbing on the stairs. "He tried to protect me," she said. "He told me to stay away from the basement. He thought that man might come back." "What man?" I asked. She hesitated, then whispered a name. When she did, my blood ran cold. It was someone I knew. Someone had sat at my kitchen table. Someone had smiled at me, called me Ma. My son's co-worker. I was halfway to calling the police when headlights swept across the basement window. A car was pulling into the driveway. Emily's face drained of color. "That's his car," she whispered. "It's him." I turned off the flashlight. The world collapsed into darkness. Upstairs, the front door creaked open. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. The same rhythm from the video. I pressed a shaking hand over Emily's mouth. The footsteps moved through the kitchen, into the living room, closer. Then, a board creaked above us. He was standing right over the basement door. The doorknob rattled. Once. Twice. Then silence. His breathing came through the wood, steady, listening. I prayed he wouldn't find the key. But the key was still in the lock. For what felt like forever, the world didn't move. No wind. No sound. Just my heartbeat hammering in my ears. Then, the faint metallic scrape of a key turning. The lock shifted. "Emily," I whispered, "go. Hide behind the furnace. Don't make a sound." She slipped into the darkness, her tiny sobs swallowed by the cold air. The door opened an inch. Light spilled down the stairs. Then, click. A flashlight beam swept across the basement. It stopped on my face. The beam landed on me, and that same voice from the video said, calm and cold, "You shouldn't have opened that door, Ma." The phone didn't just record, it remembered. I froze at the bottom of the basement stairs. That flashlight beam pinned me like prey, white, steady, shaking just a little. The voice behind it was calm. Too calm. "Didn't I tell him to keep you out of this, Ma?" For a heartbeat, I forgot how to breathe. I knew that voice. I'd heard it 100 times, through Sunday dinners, phone calls, and laughter that once filled this house. "Mark," I whispered. "Why are you here?" The beam wavered, then steadied. "Where's Emily?" The way he said her name, flat, practiced, made my stomach twist. "She's gone," I lied. "Left hours ago." A pause. Then the faintest curl of a smile in his voice. "You were never good at lying," he said. "Neither was your son." He started down the steps, one deliberate footfall at a time. I could smell him before I could see him, sweat, metal, and something acrid. My eyes darted across the basement, tools on the wall, a crowbar, paint cans, a rusted hammer. My fingers brushed the wooden handle. I gripped it tight. Mark reached the bottom step. His flashlight swept across the concrete floor, over the table, the stains, and the phone still clutched in my shaking hand. "So," he said quietly, "you saw it." I didn't answer. "You watched the video?" My throat was dry. "I saw enough." He gave a small, humorless laugh. "Then you know your son shouldn't have gotten involved." "He was helping her," I said. Mark smiled, thin, sharp, practiced. He was hiding evidence. Before I could speak, he lunged. His hand shot out and crushed my wrist, the one holding the phone, until I dropped it. The hammer clattered across the floor. "Where's the girl?" He barked. I said nothing. He slammed me back against the wall. The cold bit through my sweater. "She saw things she shouldn't have," he hissed. "Your boy tried to play hero, but he didn't know how deep this runs." From behind the furnace came a sound, a quick, shaky breath. "Emily." Mark's head tilted. "Ah," he whispered. "There you are." He turned toward the noise. I didn't think, I just moved. I threw myself at him. We hit the floor hard. The flashlight went spinning, its beam slicing wild arcs through the dark. Shadows danced like broken film frames. He cursed, reaching for the light. But I was faster. I snatched it, switched it off, and plunged the room into black. "Emily, run!" I shouted. I heard her bare feet slap against the concrete. Then the sharp crack of Mark grabbing her. She screamed. "Stop it!" I yelled. "Let her go!" There was a struggle, a crash, something heavy falling. Then, silence. A silence so deep it hummed in my ears. I fumbled for the flashlight and switched it back on. The beam landed on Mark. He was on the floor, dazed. A wrench lay beside his head. Emily stood above him, trembling, tears streaking her dirty cheeks. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. I grabbed her shoulders. "It's all right. We have to go. Now." But Mark's fingers twitched. His eyelids fluttered open. He wasn't finished. "Run!" I shouted again. We bolted up the stairs. The door slammed behind us. I twisted the lock. For a moment, I thought we were safe. Then it hit me. The phone, my son's phone, the only proof of what happened, was still downstairs. And Mark was waking up right beside it. I grabbed the kitchen phone, the old landline with the frayed cord, and dialed 911. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. There's a man in the house," I gasped. "He attacked us." "Please, stay on the line, ma'am," the operator said calmly. "Officers are on their way." "Are you injured?" "No, but my son, he's missing, and there's blood," a loud thud interrupted me. From below, the basement door rattled. Once. Twice. Then harder, with splintering, hinges groaning. Emily clutched my arm. "He's coming." I dropped the phone. Grabbed the nearest thing, a kitchen knife. The pounding grew louder. Then, nothing. That awful, loaded silence again. I held my breath. Then, the shatter of glass. From the back window. "He's in," Emily screamed. We ran down the hallway. The house felt endless, a maze of shadows and half-open doors. Every creak, every breath felt amplified. Behind us, footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. "Emily," he called, voice cutting through the dark. "You can't hide forever." I pushed her into the laundry room and slammed the door, locking it. "Stay quiet," I whispered. Outside, the footsteps stopped. Then, a laugh. Low, steady. "Do you know what your son did, Ma?" He said through the wall. He thought he could expose me. That recording was supposed to ruin me. But he didn't realize I already ruined him. My heart sank. "You hurt him," I said. Silence. Then another laugh, closer this time. The doorknob rattled. I stood between Emily and the door, gripping the knife in both hands. My pulse thundered in my ears. Then, a flash of blue light through the window. Sirens. Police. Mark froze. For a breath, the world went still. Then he bolted. I heard him crash through the front room, the slam of the screen door, shouting outside. "Police! Drop it!" 2 officers tackled him in the yard, pressing him into the wet earth. Their flashlights cut through the dark, beams landing on his face. Pale. Wild-eyed. Cornered. And for the first time that night, I could breathe again. When the officers came inside, I told them everything, about the video, the basement, my son. They went down and brought the phone back up, sealed in a plastic bag. The blood on the shirt matched my son's type. But there was no body. No sign of where Head gone. Only the recording, proof that Head tried to save her, and that Mark had tried to silence him. Hours passed. The house buzzed with police radios, flashlights sweeping across walls that had been still too long. I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cold cup of tea I hadn't poured. Emily sat beside me, shaking, silent. An officer approached, holding the phone. "We'll need to take this for forensics," he said softly. "But before we do, there's something you might want to see." He pressed play. It was the same video, the shouting, the scuffle, the crash. But this time, something came after. A faint sound. Footsteps. Then my son's voice. Hoarse, weak, but alive. "If you're watching this, Mom, I'm sorry. Don't trust anyone until I come back." The screen went black. Emily's eyes filled with tears. He's alive? I nodded slowly. He has to be. Outside, the red and blue lights painted the windows, like a heartbeat pulsing through the night. But under the relief, something colder stirred. Because I'd heard that last line before, not in the basement, not from the phone, but somewhere else. Somewhere close. And if he said until I come back, then he was still running from something. Something still out there. I thought the recording was an ending, but it was a message. My son was alive. And whatever he was running from wasn't finished yet. Monsters don't always live under the bed. Sometimes they knock on your door. When dawn broke, the house didn't feel like home anymore. The sun crept through cracked blinds, painting the living room in stripes of light and grief. Every corner whispered of what had happened. Police tape across the porch, muddy boot prints on the floor, the faint smell of smoke from the shattered back window. Emily sat at the kitchen table wrapped in my patchwork quilt, eyes hollow from a night that hadn't truly ended. The girl looked like a ghost sitting in my chair. And I just stood there, staring at the coffee mug that still bore my son's fingerprints from 2 weeks ago. He was out there. Somewhere between the trees, the lies, and the truth. And I was running out of time to bring him home. When the police finally left, the silence came back. But it wasn't the old kind, not peaceful or gentle. It was heavy. Watchful. Emily had drifted to sleep on the couch, her hand clutching the edge of the quilt like a lifeline. I tried to make tea, though my hand shook so badly I spilled more than I poured. The kettle hissed louder than my own heartbeat. Then, a sound. A faint creak. From upstairs. Just one at first. Then another. Slow. Careful. Measured. I froze, teacup halfway to my lips. It wasn't the house. I knew this home's language, every groan, every sigh. This was different. Someone was moving above us. I set the cup down, quietly. And I reached for the same hammer I'd held the night before, my new kind of rosary, heavy and cold in my palm. The stairs groaned under my feet as I climbed. Morning. Light spilled weakly through the hallway window, painting long, trembling shadows on the walls. The air smelled of dust and something else, fear, old and familiar. My son's bedroom door was half open. Inside, everything was frozen in time, shirts folded, bed made, not a thing disturbed. But the air felt warm. Like someone had just exhaled. I stepped closer. That's when I saw it. The bed skirt, moving. Just slightly. A slow, trembling shift, like someone trying not to breathe too loud. My throat tightened. I raised the hammer. "If you're in there," I said, voice low and steady, "come out. Now." No answer. The movement stopped. For a heartbeat, everything went still, just me, the hammer, and the weight of my own pulse. Then a whisper. Faint. Familiar. Breaking me open. "Mom?" The hammer slipped from my hand. I dropped to my knees, lifted the bed skirt, and there he was. My son. His face pale, eyes hollowed by days without sleep. A bruise blooming along his jaw, a streak of dried blood near his temple. He looked both older and smaller than I remembered. Jesus, Joseph, and Mary. I breathed, pulling him out. He groaned, clutching his ribs. Careful. Cracked, maybe. I held him close anyway. "You fool," I whispered. "You scared the life out of me." He tried to smile, that same crooked grin that always melted my anger. "Had to keep you out of it," he rasped. I swatted his arm, half angry, half shaking. "And how did that work out for you?" He winced, but his eyes softened. "You're here, aren't you?" I helped him sit on the bed, grabbed a glass of water, and sat beside him as he tried to steady his breathing. His voice was rough, but the truth came spilling out, jagged and unfinished. "Mark was in deep," he said. "Smuggling, money laundering, things that went way beyond the church, beyond donations. Emily saw something she shouldn't have. A deal at the docks. He wanted her gone. And you? I asked quietly. I couldn't let him hurt her. I hid her here. Told her not to make a sound, no matter what. But Mark, he found out. He came for me. His voice cracked. He took my phone. Didn't know it was recording. I crawled out the basement window after he left. Been hiding in the woods since. Tears burned my eyes. Why didn't you call me? He smiled weakly. Would you have stayed away if I did? I shook my head, swallowing the ache. No. I suppose not. A sound downstairs, soft footsteps, quick and light. Mrs. Daniels? Emily's voice called. I stood. Up here, sweetheart. She rushed in, eyes wide, and when she saw him, she stopped dead in her tracks. Her lips trembled. Oh my God, she whispered. You're alive. He smiled through the pain. Hey, Em. The next second, she was in his arms, crying. The kind of tears that strip years off your soul. He held her, wincing but not letting go. I watched them, two broken pieces finding each other again, and I realized something. I wasn't the one who'd found him. Love had. Love had dragged him back into the light. We called the detective. When the police arrived, they treated him gently, took his statement, patched him up, promised justice. Mark's prints were everywhere, his crimes unraveling like rotten thread. The recording would bury him. But one thing kept scratching at the back of my mind. Why had my son come back here, of all places? Why hide under that bed, in this house of memories? When the officers left and Emily finally fell asleep beside him, I asked. He stared at the ceiling for a long moment, then said softly, because this is where you used to hide me, Ma. When Dad got angry, you'd say to stay quiet, no matter what. You said this spot would always keep me safe. The words hit me like a cold wind through the heart. He looked at me, voice breaking. I figured, if you could protect me once, maybe you could do it again. I turned away before he could see my tears. All these years, I thought time had healed what those nights had carved into him. But the past doesn't fade, it just waits. And yet, maybe that same pain had turned him into the kind of man who protects others, no matter the cost. He hadn't disappeared out of weakness. Had vanished out of love. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows like forgiveness. I made breakfast, real breakfast, pancakes, eggs, coffee that filled the house with warmth again. He sat at the table, bruised but smiling, Emily at his side. They whispered, laughed softly, like children trying to remember joy. I watched them, memorizing the way light touched their faces. Because I knew it wouldn't last. Soon there'd be hearings, questions, news vans. But for now, for this small slice of morning, we were just family again. And that was enough. Later, when they slept, I went upstairs alone. The room was quiet, the bed still had a dent where I'd been hiding. I sat on the floor, ran my hand along the frame. The same wood I used to tuck him under during storms. The same place that had shielded him again when the world turned cruel. I whispered, like a prayer only mothers understand, thank you for bringing him back. The air was still, until a soft creak came from beneath the bed. Not fear this time. Just memory. Because sometimes, a house remembers too. I thought I came searching for a missing son. But what I really found was proof that no matter how dark the world gets, a mother's love never loses the trail. He disappeared for 2 weeks, but now I know he never really left me.